The art of presence is one of the most powerful skills a man can develop. It is the ability to exist fully in the moment, completely engaged in what you are doing without distraction, anxiety, or the need for external validation. Most people are never truly present. Their minds are elsewhere, lost in thoughts of the past, worrying about the future, or obsessing over how others perceive them. This lack of presence weakens them. It makes them anxious, restless, and ungrounded. A man who is not present is a man who is not in control. When you are fully present, you command attention without trying. There is a certain weight to a person who is completely in the moment, unshaken by distractions, unaffected by external noise. His energy is steady, his actions deliberate. He listens deeply, moves with intention, and radiates a quiet confidence. This is why presence is so rare. Most people are constantly reacting, caught up in their thoughts, rather than simply being. But the man who has mastered presence does not need to seek validation or approval. He becomes magnetic simply by existing in the now. Presence is not about performing. It is not about trying to appear confident or forcing yourself to act a certain way. It is about removing everything unnecessary, overthinking, insecurity, the need to impress, and simply existing as you are. When you are truly present, you do not hesitate. You do not analyze yourself in real time or worry about what others think. You simply engage with the world as it is, moment by moment, with full awareness. This level of presence is what makes people take notice, not because you are demanding their attention, but because your energy is Think of the last time you spoke to someone who was really present with you, someone who listened without distractions, who wasn't checking their phone, looking around the room, or thinking of what to say next. That kind of presence is powerful because it is rare. Most people are waiting for their turn to speak, lost in their own thoughts, or focused on how they are being perceived. But a man who is fully engaged in the present moment stands out without trying. He is the kind of person people remember not because he seeks attention, but because he gives his full attention to everything he does. Presence is also the antidote to nervousness and overthinking. When you are focused on the present, you do not have time to be self-conscious. Self-doubt only exists when your mind is split. When part of you is engaged in the moment and another part is observing yourself, analyzing, judging, and questioning. The man who has trained himself to be fully present has no room for self-doubt because he is too busy experiencing rather than overanalyzing. One of the biggest obstacles to presence is distraction. In a world where people are constantly overstimulated, scrolling through their phones, multitasking, always looking for the next hit of dopamine, it has become rare to find someone who can simply be in the moment. But this is precisely why mastering presence gives you an advantage. The man who is undistracted is the man who holds power. When you are truly present, people feel it. They sense that you are not seeking anything, not desperate for attention, not trying to be something you are not. And that kind of presence draws people in naturally. The mistake many make is believing they need to put on an act to be seen. They think they must project confidence, speak in a certain way, or perform to be respected. But the opposite is true. The more you try to be something, the more obvious it becomes that you are trying. The man who is simply there, grounded, unbothered by perception, and fully engaged with reality, is the man who commands respect effortlessly. Mastering presence requires discipline. It means training your mind to stay where your body is, resisting the urge to drift into thoughts of the past or future. It means eliminating distractions, putting your phone away, focusing deeply on conversations, and truly listening when others speak. It means acting without hesitation, without self-doubt, without the need for external reassurance. This level of presence does not come naturally to most, but it can be developed through practice. One way to cultivate presence is through breath control. When you find yourself drifting, overthinking, or feeling anxious, focus on your breath. Deep, controlled breathing anchors you to the present moment. Another way is through complete engagement with your environment. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. When you speak, focus entirely on your words. When you listen, hear every detail without planning your response. The more you train yourself to do this, the more naturally present you become. Presence is a form of power. It separates those who lead from those who follow, those who attract from those who chase, those who command respect from those who beg for it. A man who is present does not seek approval because he does not need it. He is too engaged in the moment to worry about how he is perceived. And ironically, it is this lack of concern that makes him all the more respected. At the core of presence is freedom. The freedom to exist without hesitation, without overthinking, without distraction. The man who has mastered presence does not need to chase anything. He moves through life fully engaged, fully aware, and because of this, the world naturally moves toward him. Control over emotions is the foundation of true power. A man who is ruled by his emotions is a man who is ruled by the world around him. He is easily provoked, easily swayed, and easily manipulated. He reacts instead of responds, acts on impulse rather than reason, and allows temporary feelings to dictate his actions. Such a man is weak, not because he lacks strength, but because he lacks control. He is at the mercy of his emotions, and because of this, he is at the mercy of anyone who knows how to manipulate them. To master yourself, you must master your emotion. This does not mean suppressing them, nor does it mean pretending you feel nothing. It means developing the ability to choose how you respond to them. Anger, frustration, jealousy, insecurity. These emotions will arise, but the question is, will you let them control you, or will you control them? The Stoic understands that emotions are like wild horses. If left unchecked, they will run wild and drag him in directions he does not want to go. But if tamed, if disciplined, if understood, they can be harnessed and used as a source of power. A man who lacks emotional control is predictable, and a predictable man is easy to control. If you can be provoked into anger, then anyone who understands this weakness can make you act against your own interests. If you are easily flattered, then those who wish to manipulate you can do so with empty praise. If you become anxious in the face of uncertainty, then those who create chaos can keep you in a state of fear. A man who is ruled by his emotions is a puppet, and those who understand human nature will pull his strings as they please. The Stoic does not allow this. He recognizes his emotions, but he does not obey them blindly. When anger arises, he does not lash out. He pauses, considers, and responds with reason. When insecurity whispers to him, he does not seek external reassurance. He acknowledges the feeling and moves forward anyway. When fear attempts to paralyze him, he does not submit. He understands that fear is an illusion, a test of his ability to act despite discomfort. There is a saying, a fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man keeps them under control. The weak man believes that emotional expression is a sign of strength, that being openly reactive makes him powerful, but the truth is the opposite. A man who cannot control his emotions is not respected, he is pitied. He is seen as unstable, unreliable, and easily broken. The strong man, however, is the one who remains steady. He is the eye of the storm, calm while everything around him is chaotic. And because of this, people naturally look to him for leadership. Emotional control is particularly important in moments of conflict. Many men destroy their own position because they allow their emotions to take over. They react too quickly, speak without thinking, act impulsively, and make decisions they later regret. In moments of confrontation, the man who remains calm always holds the upper hand. He does not respond with anger, but with strategy. He does not let insults get under his skin, because he knows that reacting emotionally only gives power to his opponent. His stillness frustrates those who wish to provoke him because they realize they have no control over him. But emotional control is not just about handling conflict, it is about maintaining strength in all aspects of life. In relationships, the man who controls his emotions is the one who is respected. He does not become needy, does not act out of jealousy, does not allow his feelings to dictate his actions. He remains composed, and because of that he is valued. In business, The man who controls his emotions is the one who succeeds. He does not make rash decisions based on fear or excitement, but operates with logic and patience. In self-discipline, the man who controls his emotions is the one who thrives. He does not give in to momentary urges, does not let laziness or doubt dictate his actions. He remains committed to his purpose, regardless of how he feels in the moment. So how does one develop this level of control? The first step is awareness. Many people do not even realize they are being controlled by their emotions. They react on impulse, and only afterward do they recognize their mistake. The key is to develop the ability to pause, to recognize the emotion before it dictates action. When anger arises, instead of immediately responding, take a breath, analyze the situation, and ask yourself, what is the smartest response? When insecurity appears, instead of feeding it with doubt, remind yourself that emotions are temporary and should never dictate permanent decisions. The second step is discipline. Emotional control is like a muscle. It must be trained. This means practicing restraint in small moments so that you are prepared for larger challenges. It means not reacting when someone tries to provoke you. It means resisting the urge to seek external validation when you feel uncertain. It means choosing logic over impulse, control over chaos. With time, this level of discipline becomes natural and emotions lose their power over you. Finally, the third step is detachment. Most emotional suffering comes from attachment to outcomes, to opinions, to expectations. The Stoic understands that the less he attaches himself to external things, the less control they have over him. He does not need approval, so he is not shaken by rejection. He does not need to win every battle, so he does not fight pointless ones. He does not need to react to every insult, so he remains composed while others lose themselves. Mastery over emotions is mastery over life. A man who can control his emotions can control his fate. He is not a slave to his impulses, not a prisoner of his own mind. He moves through the world with steady confidence, unshaken by the chaos around him, and in doing so, he becomes untouchable. Your value is internal. It does not come from what others think of you, what status you hold, or what external validation you receive. It is something that exists within you, independent of the opinions of the world. And yet, most people live as if their worth is dictated by outside forces. They seek approval, fearing rejection. They define themselves by their achievements, dreading failure. They measure their value by how others react to them, never realizing that this dependence keeps them weak. A man who ties his worth to external factors is a man who has no control over himself. If he is praised, he feels high. If he is criticized, he feels low. If he is wanted, he feels powerful. If he is ignored, he feels insignificant. His sense of self fluctuates with the world around him, leaving him vulnerable to every shift in circumstance. He is a leaf in the wind carried by forces outside his control. And as long as he continues to seek worth externally, he will never be free. But the man who understands that his value is internal cannot be shaken. He knows that his worth does not depend on admiration, success, or validation from others. He does not need to prove himself because he already knows who he is. His confidence is not an act, not something he must maintain through external reassurance, but a quiet certainty that is rooted in self-respect. Imagine two men walking into a room. One is desperate to be liked. He adjusts his words, his posture, his entire demeanor based on how others react to him. He seeks approval, hoping to impress. But because he relies on external validation, he appears weak. His neediness is evident. The other man, however, walks in with no concern for how he is perceived. He does not seek attention, does not try to prove anything, does not bend himself for approval. And because of this, he holds power. His presence alone commands respect, not because he asks for it, but because he does not need it. When your value is internal, the world cannot take it from you. No insult can wound you, no rejection can diminish you, and no failure can define you. This is true strength. Not the kind that boasts, not the kind that seeks recognition, but the kind that exists quietly, unshaken by the chaos of the world. The moment you stop measuring yourself by external approval, you become untouchable. Most people live in a constant state of seeking. They seek admiration, thinking it will make them feel worthy. They seek validation, believing it will bring them confidence. They seek status, assuming it will give them power. But all of these things are illusions. The man who relies on admiration will feel empty the moment it fades. The man who depends on validation will crumble when it is denied. The man who builds his identity on status will be lost when it is taken away. To tie your value to anything external is to build your foundation on sand. The alternative is to cultivate self-worth from within. This means respecting yourself, regardless of how others treat you. It means pursuing excellence not for recognition, but because it is who you are. It means knowing that you are enough, whether the world acknowledges it or not. When you reach this level of self-assurance, you become immune to both praise and criticism. Compliments do not inflate you because you do not need them. Insults do not affect you. Approval is irrelevant because your worth is already established. This shift in mindset changes everything. In relationships, the man who does not seek validation is the man who holds power. He is not needy, not desperate, not trying to prove his worth. He simply is. And because of this, he is naturally respected. In business, the man who does not depend on status for his identity is the one who operates with true confidence. He is not afraid of failure, because failure does not diminish him. He takes risks, not because he is reckless, but because his self-worth is not tied to success or failure. In personal growth, the man who does not seek external approval is the one who thrives. He does not need permission to be great. He simply decides to be. This level of self-sufficiency is rare. Most people will never reach it because they are too attached to external validation. They cannot imagine feeling worthy without someone else confirming it for them. But the moment you free yourself from this dependence, you become truly powerful. You no longer need to impress anyone. You no longer fear rejection. You no longer waste energy trying to prove yourself. You simply are. And that is enough. Ultimately, the man who understands that his value is internal is the man who is free. He does not chase approval because he does not need it. He does not fear judgment because it does not define him. He does not rely on anything external to feel whole. He carries his worth within himself, and because of this, he cannot be broken. Desire is a distraction. It pulls you away from yourself, weakens your mind, and makes you dependent on things outside your control. When you desire something intensely, whether it be admiration, attention, or validation, you place your sense of fulfillment in the hands of another. You tell yourself that your happiness, your confidence, even your identity are dependent on whether or not you receive what you crave. And in doing so, you give away your power. The man ruled by desire is a man who has lost control. He is no longer the master of his mind, but a slave to his longing. He wakes up thinking of what he lacks, goes to sleep restless over what he does not have, and spends his days chasing something that always seems just out of reach. This endless pursuit leaves him drained, anxious, and unfulfilled. The more he chases, the more desperate he appears. The more desperate he appears, the less he attracts what he seeks. It is a vicious cycle, one that keeps him trapped in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The problem with desire is that it blinds you. It makes you believe that fulfillment lies somewhere outside of you, that if only you could have this one thing, you would finally feel whole. But this is an illusion. Even if you obtain what you desire, the satisfaction is temporary. Soon, a new longing takes its place, and the chase begins again. The Stoic understands that true strength comes not from obtaining what you want, but from needing nothing outside yourself. The less you desire, the freer you become. There is a reason why those who are detached seem to have more power. When a man is indifferent to whether or not he receives validation, he carries an aura of confidence. He does not chase, and so he does not appear needy. He does not cling, and so he remains respected. His self-sufficiency makes him attractive. Not because he is trying to be, but because he does not need to be. The paradox of desire is that the more you crave something, the more elusive it becomes. But the moment you stop needing it, it starts to gravitate toward you. Think of a man who walks into a room filled with people. If he desires attention, it will show in his actions. He will try too hard, force himself into conversations, laugh too loudly, and constantly check to see if others are responding to him. His energy is desperate, and people will sense it. But if he walks into that same room indifferent to whether anyone notices him, his energy is completely different. He is calm, composed, and unconcerned with proving himself. Ironically, this is the very thing that makes him more intriguing. His lack of neediness signals strength, and strength is magnetic. This same principle applies to every area of life. In relationships, the one who desires the least holds the most power. The person who is willing to walk away is the one who is respected. The one who clings out of fear of loss is the one who is discarded. In business, the man who operates from a position of strength does not desperately chase opportunities. He lets them come to him. He is selective, not because he believes he is above others, but because he knows his worth. In personal growth, the man who is not fixated on external rewards is the one who reaches the highest levels. He does not train, work, or strive for recognition. He does these things because they are part of who he is. To overcome the distraction of desire, you must learn to detach. This does not mean suppressing your emotions or pretending you do not want anything. It means training yourself to remain unmoved by whether or not your desires are fulfilled. If you get what you want, fine. If you do not, also fine. Your inner state must remain unchanged. The moment you reach this level of indifference, you become truly powerful. Detachment does not mean you stop striving for success. It does not mean you stop pursuing goals. What it means is that your happiness, your self-worth, and your sense of fulfillment are no longer tied to outcomes. You work hard not because you need to prove anything, but because excellence is your stand. You take action not because you are chasing a result, but because taking action is who you are. You interact with others not because you need their approval, but because you choose to, free from expectation. Most people will never understand this. They will continue to chase, continue to seek, continue to believe that happiness lies in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next validation. But those who understand that desire is a distraction will rise above the cycle. They will move through the world with quiet confidence, unattached to anything, needing nothing, and because of that, they will have everything. When you free yourself from desire, you free yourself from weakness. You no longer suffer from restlessness, insecurity, or frustration over what you lack. You become complete within yourself, and once you reach that state, the world bends to you, not because you asked it to, but because it has no choice. There is a quiet power in a man who does not seek approval, a presence so unshaken that it commands attention without a word. Yet, many find themselves trapped, chasing validation, yearning for recognition, believing that desire must be earned through effort. But what if the opposite were true? Mastering your emotions is the foundation of all personal power. A man who is ruled by his feelings is a man without direction, constantly swayed by external forces, whether it be the opinions of others, fleeting desires, or temporary frustrations. To be truly powerful, one must learn to govern his emotions with the same discipline that a warrior governs his sword. Without this control, he is nothing more than a slave to impulse. The modern world encourages emotional indulgence. It tells you to express every feeling, to act on every whim, and to chase every desire as if it were the key to fulfillment. But in truth, this path leads to chaos. Consider a man who allows his emotions to dictate his actions. When he feels desire, he becomes restless. When he feels rejection, he becomes bitter. When he feels slighted, he becomes vengeful. At every turn, he is at the mercy of forces outside himself. He is not free, he is a prisoner to whatever the world throws at him. The Stoic understands that emotions are natural, but they are not commands. Anger may arise, but it does not mean one must lash out. Desire may stir, but it does not mean one must chase. Fear may creep in, but it does not mean one must cower. True mastery comes not from eliminating emotions, but from reigning over them. You must stand above your feelings, acknowledging them, but refusing to be governed by them. Imagine a man who walks into a room with perfect composure. His presence is not desperate, not seeking approval, not grasping for attention. He does not react emotionally to the energy around him. He sets the tone. He is calm, measured, and in control of himself. People take notice, not because he demands it, but because self-mastery is rare. In contrast, a man who enters with nervous energy, whose mood shifts based on who acknowledges him and who does not, exposes his lack of control. He signals weakness, and weakness is repellent. The mistake many make is believing that they must perform in order to be valued, that they must project confidence, force charisma, or seek validation. But in doing so, they betray themselves. True confidence is quiet. It is not about being loud, nor is it about proving anything to anyone. It is about certainty, certainty in oneself, in one's worth, and in one's ability to handle whatever may come. Consider the example of a seasoned warrior versus an untrained fighter. The untrained man swings wildly, reacting to every move, burning his energy in an attempt to dominate the fight. The seasoned warrior, however, does not flinch. He observes, he calculates, and he controls his breath. His strength does not come from his ability to lash out, but from his ability to remain composed. This is the power of emotional mastery. Now, apply this to your own life. Every time you feel an emotion surge within you, ask yourself, is this feeling controlling me, or am I controlling it? When you feel the urge to react, pause. When you feel the impulse to seek validation, resist. When you feel the need to prove yourself, remind yourself that true power needs no proof. The more you practice this discipline, the stronger you become. There is no greater freedom than being unmoved by the external world. The moment you no longer react emotionally to rejection, to praise, to validation, or to criticism, you become untouchable. Others will feel this shift. They will sense the absence of neediness, the lack of desperation, the quiet confidence that comes from a man who does not seek, because he already knows his worth. A man who masters his emotions does not chase. He does not beg for attention, nor does he crumble when he does not receive it. He moves through life with intention, not impulse. And paradoxically, it is this very quality that draws people toward him. The less he needs, the more he attracts. The less he reacts, the more powerful he appears. This is not to say that one must suppress emotions or become robotic. Stoicism is not about eliminating feeling, but about ensuring that feelings do not dictate action. Emotions are like storms, temporary, unpredictable, and often intense. But just as the ocean remains vast and unshaken despite the waves upon its surface, so too must a man remain steady despite the storms of his mind. Ultimately, mastering your emotions is mastering yourself. And once you have done this, you no longer need to seek approval, attention, or validation from others. Your presence alone speaks for you, and that is enough. The power of indifference is one of the greatest strengths a man can cultivate. It is the ability to move through the world without being disturbed by external forces, to remain unmoved by praise or criticism, to live not for validation, but for self-discipline. Most people spend their lives seeking approval, craving attention, and measuring their worth by how others perceive them. But the man who embraces indifference understands that external validation is fleeting, unreliable, and ultimately meaningless. His focus is inward, and because of that, he becomes unshakable. Indifference does not mean apathy. It does not mean you feel nothing or that you do not care about life. Rather, it means you are not controlled by external outcomes. You do not allow success to inflate you, nor failure to diminish you. You do not live in reaction to how others perceive you. A man who depends on external validation is a man who has placed his power in the hands of others. If he is admired, he feels strong. If he is ignored, he feels weak. He lives at the mercy of the world around him, constantly chasing approval like a beggar seeking scraps. The Stoic man, however, knows that no external force can grant him true worth. His value is self-defined. He acts with integrity, not for applause, but because it aligns with his principles. He speaks with conviction, not to impress, but because he believes in his words. He does not concern himself with whether others approve, because he does not need their approval. This is the power of indifference, not the absence of feeling, but the absence of neediness. People can sense when a man is desperate for attention. It leaks through his words, his actions, and his presence. He may speak with forced confidence, but his need for validation betrays him. He may present himself as strong, but his eagerness to please exposes his weakness. True strength is found in the man who remains indifferent to whether others admire him. He is complete on his own, and, paradoxically, this is what draws others to him. Imagine two men in a room. One is loud, constantly seeking attention, trying to be noticed. The other is quiet, but carries himself with presence. He does not need to speak to be felt. His indifference to whether others acknowledge him creates an aura of mystery and strength. He does not try to prove himself, and because of that, he does not need to. The more indifferent he is, the more others are drawn to him. This is the paradox. When you stop seeking, you become the one who is sought. Desire is a dangerous thing when it controls you. If you desire approval, you will always be at the mercy of those who grant it. If you desire attention, you will always be chasing it. If you desire acceptance, you will always be vulnerable to rejection. The man who is indifferent to these things is free. He does not chase, and so he is never desperate. He does not beg for recognition, and so he never appears weak. He moves through life with quiet confidence, understanding that his worth is not dependent on the shifting opinions of others. But how does one cultivate this level of indifference? The answer is through self-discipline. You must train yourself to let go of attachment to external outcomes. If someone praises you, accept it without allowing it to inflate your ego. If someone criticizes you, hear it without allowing it to shake your confidence. When you no longer need validation, you become immune to both flattery and insult. You act not for the sake of being seen, but because your actions are aligned with your own values. This mindset applies to every area of life: relationships, business, personal growth. In relationships, the man who is indifferent to whether someone stays or leaves is the one who is most respected. He does not cling, he does not beg, he does not seek approval, and because of that he holds power. In business, the man who does not chase opportunities desperately is the one who is valued. He understands that neediness repels and abundance attracts. In personal growth, the man who does not measure his worth by external validation is the one who continues to rise, unaffected by setbacks or temporary praise. Indifference is not an excuse for laziness or a lack of ambition. It does not mean you stop striving for excellence. Rather, it means you pursue excellence for its own sake, not because you need to be recognized, but because it is a reflection of your own discipline and character. You build yourself into someone strong, not so others will admire you, but because you refuse to be anything less. At the core of indifference is freedom. The freedom to exist without the burden of needing approval. The freedom to move through life without seeking permission to be great. The freedom to be complete, whether the world notices or not. When you master this, you will find that you no longer need to chase anything, because in the end, it is the man who does not seek that the world cannot ignore.